Loving Sai Ram and greetings from Prashanti Nilayam. As just announced, this is the fourth talk in my current series. If you recall, I began with an account of how Valmiki came to write this immortal epic and then started on the Balakandam, where the incarnation of the Lord as Rama, the eldest son of Dasaratha, is described, as also the earlier years. In my narrative, I had come up to the point where Rama, helping sage Vishwamitra to successfully complete his yajna, travels with the sage to Mithila, the capital city of the kingdom ruled by Janaka. On the way, at the instance of the sage, Rama helps Ahalya, the wife of sage Gautama, to be liberated from a curse. Subsequently, when Vishwamitra arrives in the court of Emperor Janaka, he, along with Rama and Lakshmana, were warmly received. Now, it turns out that sage Sadanand, the family preceptor for Janaka, is actually the son of sage Gautama and Ahalya. Thrilled to learn that his mother had been redeemed by Rama and that his parents had begun living together, Sadanand then began to narrate the story of how Vishwamitra was actually a king earlier and what made him turn a sage, attaining finally the level of Brahma Rishi. I had begun telling you this story last time and had come up to the point where Vishwamitra, the scion of Kaushik and the son of King Gaudi, came to the ashram of sage Vasishta, where he was received with due hospitality. When the king learnt that Vasishta was able to entertain him, the king, and his entire army in the middle of a forest on such a grand scale, because the sage had a cow named Shabala with miraculous powers, the king tried to make a deal. He told the sage that he would give any number of cows in exchange for this one cow that Vasishta had. But of course, Vasishta flatly rejected the exchange offer, adding that Shabala was inseparable from him. When Vishwamitra found that no amount of persuasion would work, he tried force. Shabala wept even as the soldiers of the king tried to drag her away. Unable to bear her agony, Vasishta then ordered Shabala to create a huge army to fight the enraged king. A fierce battle then ensued, which Vishwamitra lost. Having suffered huge casualties and lost most of his sons as well, Vishwamitra retreated in anger and shame. He realized that the power of tapas was greater than that of military might. And after this realization came to him, Vishwamitra handed over his kingdom to his only surviving son and withdrew to the forest to do penance and gain powers such as rishis acquired. That was where I stopped, and today let me resume from that point. So, the king decided to do penance, and to start with, he propitiated Lord Shiva, earning from him the boon of several powerful astras. Full of pride and feeling now that he had enough power to successfully attack Vasishta and take away his sacred cow, Vishwamitra went back to Vasishta's ashram and launched a fierce assault using his freshly acquired missiles. Vasishta stopped them all, rendering them totally ineffective by simply placing before himself his sacred staff or dandam. Once again, Vishwamitra reflected on why and how Vasishta was able to overcome military might. Slowly, he began to realize that Vasishta's power came from the fact that he was a Brahmin, born to meditate on Brahman and master the Vedas, whereas he, Vishwamitra, was a Kshatriya, born to rule. Vishwamitra decided that this time, through the power of penance, he would seek to elevate himself from the level of Kshatriya to that of a Brahmin. With that objective, Vishwamitra withdrew once more to the forest and began to engage in tapas with fierce determination, subsisting on just roots, tubers and fruits. After testing Vishwamitra for a long time, Brahma appeared before him, appreciated his penance, blessed him, after which he declared that from now on, Vishwamitra would be known as Rajarishi, or a king who was in fact a rishi in thought, word and deed. Vishwamitra was totally dissatisfied with the blessings he had received. Instead, he lamented, "I yearn to be elevated to the level of a Brahma Rishi, and all I have got is a lesser status. Clearly, my penance was not adequate, and it means that much more is called for." Thereafter, Vishwamitra plunged into more intense tapas than ever before. Meanwhile, Trishanku, a king of the Ikshvaku dynasty, one day summoned the royal preceptor Vasishta and said to him, "I want to ascend to heaven with my full body. Please suggest some yagas or whatever, which when performed would enable me to achieve this goal." Vasishta was shocked, and he advised the king that he was asking for the impossible. It was foolish to defy the procedure laid down by destiny, whereby one first had to die and give up the body. Only then was it possible for a person to go to heaven, and that too depending on how much good he or she had done and the extent of merit accumulated while alive. It was not becoming, said Vasishta, for a ruler of the Ikshvaku clan to entertain such foolish thoughts. Not willing to give up his desire, Trishanku then approached the 100 sons of Vasishta and pleaded with them to help him attain his objective. Vasishta's sons chided the monarch for daring to approach them when their revered father, and that too the very preceptor of the royal family, had advised against such a foolish and misconceived goal. Full of anger, they then cursed Trishanku to descend from the level of a Kshatriya to that of a Chandala, the lowest among the castes. Consequent to the curse, Trishanku's complexion became dark and he lost his royal luster as well. Shocked by the transformation, the ministers and counselors who had accompanied him when he called on the sons of Vasishta deserted him and ran away. Deeply humiliated, Trishanku was more determined than ever before to achieve his objective of rising to heaven with his full body. Destiny led him to Vishwamitra, who immediately recognized Trishanku, though he now bore the features of a Chandala. Seeking the indulgence of the sage, Trishanku then narrated in detail how he had been reduced to his present fate. Throwing himself at the mercy of Vishwamitra, he said, "Having nowhere else to go, I submit myself entirely to you, regarding you as my sole refuge. Please save me somehow." Moved by the plea made by the king of the Ikshvaku dynasty, Vishwamitra said to his fellow rishis in the ashram, "We shall perform the appropriate sacrifices so that this hapless king, now reduced to the status of a Chandala, may ascend to heaven in his own embodied state." The rituals concluded, Vishwamitra invoked the presence of the various deities of heaven to come and receive their share of the offerings made earlier. However, none of the deities responded, which made Vishwamitra very angry. He then addressed Trishanku and said, "O monarch, arise and ascend to heaven with your physical form." To the astonishment of all present and of course to the great satisfaction of Vishwamitra, Trishanku immediately began rising bodily towards heaven. Watching all this from above was Indra, the ruler of heaven. Alarmed by this extraordinary deviation from established norms, Indra commanded from above, "Trishanku, return to the earth, since there is no place for you here." That very moment, Trishanku, who till then was ascending, went into a free fall. Afraid of crashing onto the earth, Trishanku screamed, "Save me! Save me!" Responding immediately, Vishwamitra shouted, "Stop! Stop falling and remain where you are." And instantly, Trishanku remained frozen between heaven and earth. Vishwamitra then proceeded to create a whole new heaven, a new hierarchy of gods, and so on, saying to himself, "If need be, I shall create even a new Indra." Clearly, things were getting rather out of hand, and greatly perturbed, the gods, the demons, and also many rishis made an earnest appeal to Vishwamitra to restrain himself, adding, "This monarch does not deserve to ascend to heaven with his body." In response, Vishwamitra pointed out that having given his word, it was not possible for him to now go back on his assurance. A compromise was then reached, whereby the gods allowed Trishanku to remain in his own separate heaven, created specially for him, but with his head pointing downward. The matter of Trishanku having been taken care of, Vishwamitra now went to the famed Pushkara lake to resume his intense tapas, totally focused on rising to the level of a Brahma Rishi. After keenly observing all this for years, Brahma appeared before Vishwamitra and said, "Till now, you were merely a sage among kings or a Raj Rishi, but now you are worthy of being called a true Rishi." After conferring his blessings, Brahma disappeared. For his part, Vishwamitra was very much delighted, and he continued with his austerities. One day when he went to the Pushkara lake to have his bath, he saw a damsel who was none other than the celebrated Menaka, a damsel of matchless beauty. Desire overtook Vishwamitra, and coming under the spell of Menaka, Vishwamitra spent 10 years with her, forgetting totally his objective. Suddenly one day he realized what a terrible mistake he was making, allowing himself to become a slave of desire instead of conquering it. He immediately asked Menaka to withdraw and focused once more on intense tapas. This time, the gods in heaven were really scared by the ferocity of the tapas. Worried that in the end Vishwamitra might acquire too much power, thereby overshadowing them all, the Devas approached Brahma and prayed that the Creator forthwith confer the title Maharishi on Vishwamitra so that he would immediately conclude his rigorous austerities and penance. Brahma agreed, appeared before Vishwamitra accompanied by Devas and various rishis, and he said, "O eminent seer, I applaud your dedication and the severe austerities you have thus far performed. I now hail you as the foremost among the rishis." Vishwamitra replied, "O great Creator, while I am most grateful to you for your kind words, I notice you have not called me a Brahma Rishi." Brahma smiled and replied, "How can I, when you have not yet conquered your senses?" Realizing his weakness and resolving firmly to rectify the defect, Vishwamitra then launched into another bout of tapas, more severe and rigorous than ever before. Once more, the gods and their leader Indra became perturbed, whereupon Indra summoned the celestial nymph Ramba and ordered her to seduce Vishwamitra. Ramba was most reluctant to do so, but under pressure yielded to Indra's orders. Assuming the form of a beautiful woman, Ramba then proceeded to distract Vishwamitra. Opening his eyes slowly, Vishwamitra, who till then was in deep meditation, understood in a flash that it was a plot hatched by Indra. Promptly he cursed Ramba, saying, "O wretched woman, I hereby curse you to turn into stone for attempting to deflect me from my intense penance and austerities. And stone you shall remain for 10,000 years until sage Vasishtha redeems you." Earlier, Vishwamitra lost the power he had acquired by yielding to lust. This time, it was anger that drained his power. Lamenting his mistake, Vishwamitra returned once more to his objective. Redoubling his resolve to practice intense sense and mind control, an essential feature of intense tapas, Vishwamitra decided he would stop breathing and eating, leaving it to the power of his austerities to sustain him. It was a pledge without any parallel, and Vishwamitra remained frozen, as it were, deep in meditation for an unimaginably long time. So fierce were his austerities that once again the denizens of heaven became greatly alarmed where all this would lead to. Rushing to Brahma, they said in one voice, "Lord, Vishwamitra is rising to greater and greater heights by virtue of his asceticism. If he starts feeling that what he is seeking is being denied, he might, with the powers he already has, even destroy all the worlds. Therefore, O Creator, please grant immediately what the sage wants." Brahma understood, and appearing before Vishwamitra along with his entire retinue said, "Vishwamitra, I am very pleased with the extreme austerities that you have observed, and with such perfection too. There remains no doubt that you have attained full Brahminhood, having shed the last vestiges of your earlier traits, which were those of the Kshatriya caste. The goal you have been seeking with such one-pointedness has at last been achieved. Go forth now and engage yourself in doing good to others." Vishwamitra was delighted to hear this highest praise coming from Brahma himself. Responding with humility, he said, "Lord, I am immensely grateful to you for granting me the one elevation of status that has been eluding me thus far. However, O Creator, cup of happiness would become full only when that glorious and most eminent of sages, namely sage Vasishtha, venerated by one and all, accepts my Brahminhood. Please can you bless me so that I become worthy of being fully accepted by Vasishtha?" Brahma nodded by way of granting his blessing and said Amen. Sometime later, Vasishtha and Vishwamitra met. Greeting Vishwamitra with a smile, Vasishtha said, "O great one, there can be no doubt any longer that you are not only a Brahmana, but indeed the foremost Rishi among Brahmins. In my mind, there is no doubt whatsoever that you are truly a Brahma Rishi. At long last, after overcoming innumerable obstacles, Vishwamitra had attained the goal that kept eluding for an agonizingly long period. If you have been following me closely, you would remember all this was sage Sadanand recalling the story of how Vishwamitra, earlier a king, rose to the level of a Brahma Rishi. When Sadanand concluded his absorbing narration, it left everyone speechless because thus far no one, except Vasishtha of course, knew how eminent sage Vishwamitra really was. It also became clear that it was the divine hand that earlier made sage Vishwamitra refuse Kamadhenu or Shabala to the son of Gadi, till then a greedy and selfish monarch. He wanted this king to transform and become sage Vishwamitra. Needless to say, all this was by way of preparing Vishwamitra to play an important role in the Rama avatar. Next morning, when Emperor Janaka called and sage Vishwamitra and paid his respects to the Holy One, the latter immediately brought up the topic of the sacred bow with Janaka, saying, "O exalted Emperor, I have brought these two wonderful princes here so that they may see the legendary bow with you. I would now like you to show it to them." Janaka replied that it would be his privilege to do so, but first he would like to narrate how that bow that originally belonged to Lord Shiva came into his possession. One day, when Shiva was in deep meditation, the Devas foolishly tried to disturb him, whereupon Shiva came out of his trance and threatened to annihilate them all with his mighty bow. Realizing their foolishness, the Devas then begged for forgiveness. Shiva instantly melted and not only forgave them but also presented them with his bow. Later, this bow was gifted to an ancestor of Janaka named Devavrita, and that was how Shiva's bow became a family possession. Janaka then added, "One day, many years ago, I was ceremoniously ploughing the field preparatory to performing a yagam when I spotted a baby girl. Treating her as a gift from God, I picked her up, named her Sita, and brought her up showering incomparable love and affection. I vowed that Sita, being a gift of God, would be given in marriage only to one who was able to lift the bow of Shiva and string it. Many have tried thus far but failed. I shall certainly show that bow to Rama, the son of Dasharatha, and if he succeeds where others have failed, I shall immediately offer my beloved Sita in marriage to him." Nodding his head, Vishwamitra replied, "O king, please arrange to have that bow brought here so that Rama can see it." Janaka immediately gave the requisite order, whereupon the bow, which was kept in the palace in a special box mounted on wheels, was pushed by a large group of royal servants all the way to Janaka's presence. Turning to Rama, Vishwamitra said, "Rama, take a look at the bow in the box." Going near the box, Rama opened the lid, exposing the bow within. He then asked Vishwamitra, "Can I lift the bow and string it?" Both Vishwamitra and Janaka said in unison, "That exactly is what you should do." Rama was now all set. He did not bend down to pick up the bow. Instead, he just pressed one end of the bow with his toe. Instantly, the bow sprang up like a cobra raising its hood. And as it came up, Rama caught the bow in the middle, strung it in a flash, and pulled the string hard. The tension applied was so high that the bow snapped, producing a thunderous sound. It all happened with lightning speed, and the effect was so stunning that almost everyone was knocked down, with the exception of Rama, Lakshmana, Vishwamitra, and Janaka. It took a few moments for Janaka to appreciate that what had seemed impossible thus far had actually happened. And once that recognition came, he realized that he had at last found the ideal husband for Sita. Without any further delay, Janaka immediately dispatched a party of messengers to Ayodhya to convey the good tidings to Emperor Dasharatha, extending a formal invitation to him to come to Mithila and celebrate the marriage of his dear son Rama to his daughter Sita. Traveling at full speed, Janaka's messengers took 4 days to reach Ayodhya, and presenting themselves before the emperor, they said, "O most respected emperor, we bring greetings and a message from our master." They then narrated in brief all that happened in Mithila, right from the arrival of sage Vishwamitra along with Rama and Lakshmana to Rama breaking the famous vow of Shiva. They then added, "Sire, our emperor has sent this personal message for you. He says, long ago, I took a pledge that I shall give my daughter in marriage only to one who lifts the bow of Shiva, strings it, and then breaks it. Rama has done precisely that, and this is clearly a divinely ordered event. In accordance with my vow, I now beg to offer my daughter in marriage to your son Rama. I respectfully seek your concurrence, and with the permission of the revered sages here, including sage Vishwamitra, I request you to graciously accept my invitation to come to Mithila along with your entire family, preceptor, and the various sages of your court, and your courtiers as well, so that the marriage may be duly solemnized." Understandably, Dasharatha was thrilled to hear the message sent by Emperor Janaka. He had sent his two darling princes to assist sage Vishwamitra to perform his yagam. But here was the sage going much beyond and finding a wonderful bride for Rama, after arranging to demonstrate to the world Rama's strength and greatness by getting him to break the famous vow of Shiva. Turning to sages Vasishtha and Vamadeva who were by his side, Dasharatha said, "O holy ones, you have heard the wonderful news brought by these messengers. If you approve of King Janaka, and if, in your opinion, a marriage alliance with the family of Janaka would be beneficial for our dynasty, let us agree to Janaka's offer and proceed forthwith to Mithila. May I know your reaction, please?" The response, positive and immediate, was conveyed in a single word, "Amen." Highly pleased, Dasharatha responded by saying, "In that case, we shall all leave tomorrow." Next morning, with the approval of his preceptors, Dasharatha summoned his senior-most minister and said to him, "Sumantra, commence immediately all preparations for our journey to Mithila. Make sure we carry appropriate gifts and in abundance. Ensure that the chariots and palanquins are provided for all members of our party. Our army shall also accompany us for ceremonial as well as security duties. The messengers of Janaka are urging us to make haste. Hence, waste no time and get everything ready as quickly as possible." Ever the efficient one, Sumantra got everything ready for departure exactly as Dasharatha had wanted. And soon, the royal party was on its way to Mithila, also known as Videha. After 4 days of journey, the marriage party entered Mithila, where an eagerly waiting Janaka received the honored guests with due respect and great joy. Addressing Dasharatha, Janaka added, "O scion of Raghu, welcome to Mithila. I extend a hearty welcome to you personally and all other members in your party. It is indeed our good fortune that you have come along with the most venerable sage Vasishtha and your entire family. Soon you would be reunited with your wonderful sons Rama and Lakshmana. By the grace of God, Rama has solved the marriage problem of my daughter Sita. It's a great honor for my family to have the opportunity of forging a marriage alliance with your noble and exalted family. You all must be quite exhausted by the journey. I therefore suggest we might discuss the marriage details tomorrow. The marriage itself could be performed 3 days later, after the conclusion of the yagam now in progress." On the morning after the successful conclusion of the yagam, Janaka summoned his younger brother Kushatvaja. When his brother arrived, Janaka sent word to Dasharatha, respectfully inviting him to come to his palace, along with his family and of course preceptor Vasishtha. After the royal guests arrived and were duly seated, Dasharatha launched the formal discussions regarding the marriage alliance. Addressing Janaka, he said, O great king, you are undoubtedly aware that the most eminent and respected sage Vasishtha is our preceptor and always speaks for all of us on such occasions. I now request him to tell you, with the permission of sage Vishwamitra, who is also present, about our lineage. Vasishtha then began as follows. From the Lord Supreme came Brahma the Creator. To him was born sage Marichi, who begat sage Kashyapa. To Kashyapa was born Vishwavan, from whom descended Manu. It was Ikshvaku, the son of Manu, who established a kingdom with Ayodhya as the capital and became its first ruler. Starting from Ikshvaku, Vasishtha then gave an elaborate description, one by one, of every single ruler of Ayodhya, all descended from Ikshvaku, ending finally with Dasratha. Altogether, it was a long and most impressive list. Vasishtha then said, O Janaka, on behalf of Dasratha and as his preceptor as well as family guru, I now propose that you offer your two daughters Sita and Urmila in marriage to Rama and Lakshmana respectively. To this, a joyous Janaka replied in a humble and most respectful tone, It's a great privilege for me, and indeed my entire race, to have a matrimonial alliance with the exalted Ikshvaku family. Sage Vasishtha spoke extensively about the glory of the family of the grooms. It is now my duty to enlighten you about the pedigree of the family to which the brides belong. Thereafter, Janaka launched into a description of his family history, which, though not as long as that of the Ikshvaku race, was nevertheless distinguished in its own right. Having thus traced his lineage, Janaka concluded by saying, My brother and I, on behalf of our family, are pleased to offer Sita and Urmila in marriage to Rama and Lakshmana respectively. A date for the marriage was also proposed. Speaking on behalf of Dasratha, sages Vishwamitra and Vasishtha then responded by saying, O king, we are all delighted by the formal proposal you have made. Now, your younger brother Kushadvaja has two daughters, Mandavi and Sutakirti. We ask that they be married to Bharata and Shatrughna respectively. In this manner, we can not only have 4 weddings instead of 2, but also a greater strengthening of the bonds between the two distinguished royal families. For Janaka, this proposal that he least expected was a huge bonus. When Dasratha returned to his lodgings after the various alliances had been agreed upon, he forthwith ordered that the preliminary rituals connected with the marriage get underway. He then found that Yudhajit, the son of the ruler of the Kekaya kingdom, had just arrived in Mithila and was waiting to see Dasratha. The arrival of Yudhajit was least expected, and when Dasratha made inquiries, Yudhajit replied, Sire, my father, who is also the father of your wife Kaikeyi, is keen to spend some time with his grandson Bharata. So he sent me to Ayodhya to seek your permission and take Bharata along with me. When I reached Ayodhya, I found that the royal household to be practically empty. On being told that all of you were here in Mithila, I rushed here. Pleased to hear all this, Dasratha then extended to Yudhajit all due courtesy and asked him to join the marriage celebrations. The day of the marriage arrived, and one by one the 4 brides were married to the chosen groom, starting with Sita being united to Rama in holy wedlock, and ending with Sutakirti being married to Shatrughna. The ceremonies were conducted with all due sanctity and festivity, and truly it was a sight for the gods. The day following the glorious multiple marriage, sage Vishwamitra announced his decision to withdraw to the Himalayas and engage in intense tapas. Bidding goodbye to all and taking special leave of Dasratha and Janaka, the sage said, O Dasratha, the purpose for which I came to your court, seeking the assistance of Rama, And O Janaka, the reason why I brought Rama to your court under the guise of witnessing the yagam you are performing must now be clear. These events did not happen by themselves, but on account of divine dispensation. As far as I am concerned, my particular mission in this divine drama is over. Conferring abundant blessings on all of you, I now wish to withdraw to the sacred mountains to contemplate in solitude the glory of the Supreme One. I think I shall stop here for the day and resume from here next time. However, before I say goodbye for now, there are a couple of things I must bring to your notice. First is that it is only by focusing on God that one can really acquire power. That is what the story of Vishwamitra teaches us. To think that one is smart, a can-do guy, is pure ego, and one day that ego is sure to crash. Secondly, God focus is not easy to achieve. Anyone who tries it seriously must also be equally serious about overcoming two great enemies of man, namely desire and anger. That is what the story of Menaka and Ramba really tell us. I do hope you find this series interesting. Wish you all the best and hope you would join me again next week. Jai Sai Ram.